do facilitate somatic breath work, which that's a specific style of breath work, and is all centered around releasing that stored trauma in the body. And I think it's so interesting with breath work because it's a big topic right now. And breath work can mean so many different things to different people, because at its core, breath work is just about connecting to your breath. And that can look like alternate nostril breathing, cyclic sighs, like what Dr. Huberman talks about. It could be box breathing, all of these sorts of practices that might just be a few minutes long. In fact, cyclic sighing, Stanford Medicine did a study on this, and I might get the exact details wrong, but 5 minutes of cyclic sighing a day for, I think it's a week or maybe a couple weeks, is actually more impactful to release anxiety and stress more than anything else, more than meditation or anything else. And specifically that style of breath work. And all it is you inhale through your nose, and then you sip in a bit more, and you exhale through your mouth. And you just do that for 5 minutes. It's super, super simple. And that is breath work. Now, when we get into like a breath work ceremony, what I've been saying recently are breath work journeys, because I think it's a good way to indicate like, hey, we're talking about going deep here and not just releasing that stored trauma and stress, but getting to that not just that stress and anxiety, but we're addressing that stored trauma in the body. And what's going on is it's actually getting you to a state where the ego can get out of the way and the body can just do its thing and release it. And it could look like a array of different emotions, from anger to even laughs, tears, all sorts of different things. But as many of your listeners, I would imagine might know, but if not, how trauma gets stored in the body is we are so conditioned and programmed to just be like a good girl or good boy or good human, right? And not express ourselves. But if we look in nature and we think about a gazelle getting chased by a lion, what do they do if they don't get killed? They kind of convulse and they shake because they're releasing that stored trauma in the body. Or we could just look at children. What's a temper tantrum? They are expressing themselves. But as humans, we hold on to that, and it's not ours to carry. So doing breath work is the best practice I've found to release that stored trauma in the body.
Oh, it's amazing. How long does a session usually last?
Yeah. So for somatic breath work, I do a little bit differently than we were trained in Stephen Jagger's training. I kind of mix it with like my own type of twist. But the basic premise of a somatic breathwork ceremony is about 60 minutes of breathing. And the first half is clearing and letting go. So that's inhaling and exhaling through the mouth. And that's really activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. So that's mimicking that stress response where we can get out of the way and release. The second half is inhaling and exhaling through the nose, and that's activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's rest and digest. This is a place to actually integrate in the experience and ground back into your body and envision how you want to move forward. It's kind of like the part that would be similar to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work in terms of manifesting. So that is a somatic breathwork ceremony. I typically allow for either an hour or an hour and a half, depending on how much time we have. A lot of my journeys will be 30 to 40 minutes because I find that a lot of the people that I work with are newer to breath work. So a 60-minute journey isn't necessarily what they need. 30 or 40 minutes is good. And I allow for more time for integration on the front and the back end, and also journaling time and sharing circles and things like that.
Amazing. What kind of arc does somebody go through in terms of experience? Like they start, I imagine their ego mind's kind of going. What are the kind of the typical stages?
Yeah. I think resistance is the first one. And I mean, I've done probably close to 30 or 40 guided breathwork journeys with an in-person facilitator. So a lot, you know, and not even counting the ones that I've done on my own that where I haven't had someone holding space or facilitating in person. And even still, a lot of times for me, it feels like you're creeping up at the top of a roller coaster. And for me, you know, I'm someone who doesn't love roller coasters. So that is some fear that comes in. There's anxiety. There's all of the resistance. And that's what I experience typically with a breathwork journey. I know that might not sound the most enticing and go do something like that, but it's when you can actually let go and surrender to that where the magic happens. And I think that's pretty normal for a lot of people to typically have some resistance. In the somatic breathwork style, we separate it by rounds. So it's about 5 to 8 minutes of breathing through the mouth, inhaling and exhaling for anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes, followed by a 2 minute hold. And usually in that second round is when people really start to let go. That's when the screams come through. That's when the tears come through, maybe the laughter. All the dynamic responses happen in the first half that is mimicking that stress response to release the trauma. Whereas the second half, that's where people kind of settle in and they start to get into that parasympathetic nervous system state.